morning, everyone, and welcome to Perspectives. It is Monday, May 16th, 2022. Wherever you are, good morning to you, and welcome to another edition of our program. Whichever broadcast entity you're viewing from, we thank you and we welcome. And again, we'd like to thank those who carry this program live, MTV, on air and online, Mikey Live, TNR Communications, Party Grenada, our own Perspectives page. Special good morning to those of you viewing on Sister Isles in Carrick, Martinique, and on KG9. I am Brenda Batiste, and it's a pleasure to welcome Senator Christopher Diali and Mr. Byron Campbell, our expert talk panelists. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning to you, Brenda.
How are we this morning?
Yeah. We are good. Rain is falling. And we had a full moon last night. It was a lovely full moon.
Yes,
so,
it was.
Those of us, yes, I saw
Yeah,
it.
of course.
I wasn't sleeping that time yet.
Okay.
But, stood up.
Moon is a big thing for some of us now.
Yeah, me too. Big thing for me. And
Now,
of
met
course,
with the overcast.
Yeah, no, it was overcast for a while, yes.
Yeah.
It was.
Okay.
Right.
And my plants are happy for the rain, so.
And we had a sort of eclipse, I think, too, kind of.
So I was
kind of,
told.
sort of.
I wasn't up for the eclipse time. But again, morning, I think a lot of things is happening, Byron.
It's
Action,
true,
we're getting
it's
ready
true.
for the political action
Absolutely.
to step up and for the momentum to start growing and right down to the 23rd.
You're talking politics now.
I'm talking current affairs.
But,
You're excited,
but
right?
Of course, we all are. Good morning.
But y'all were pretending, both of y'all were pretending all along that you're making predictions and so and so.
My predictions?
No, y'all were having secret talks. Y'all were having secret talks.
It was
I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. It was logic, really.
Really now.
It was logic, you know. For me, it was, really.
Right.
Because I felt, one, that it didn't make sense going beyond Carnival. You know, somehow I don't trust Carnival where it can take us politically.
When you know
for all,
budgets and things start
exactly.
soon after.
Yeah, budget, all of that, you know. I think also we're riding a kind of wave, I think, in the, not post-pandemic, but in that easement of the terrible variants, you know. Persons are getting back to work, and there's a certain inertia, there's a certain, and I think that I couldn't find the logic to, I mean, I put myself in the place of let's say the ruling party, in that why do you want to give the opposition all the time necessary to do its full organization and mobilization? So the element of time is important that you're in control of, mm-hmm. and any party in government takes that, it's an opportunity. And I think, yes, you can argue that you have another year, and it's true, but I think it was, that's what I anticipated, actually.
Yeah, right. Same here. I believe that your conclusions and deductions were accurate.
Yeah.
And all what you have just said, I believe that is the calculations that would have put forward. And look, I mean, politically, you look to see what advantage you could gain wherever you could gain it, mm-hmm. I would assume. Yeah. And as the incumbent, you have the so-called proverbial ticket in your pocket as to when you're going to say the date is going to be.
And when the leader is, the leadership is in the vein of statistician and looking at numbers, that's what's guiding.
Yeah, and I suspect our incumbent party has always been a party with that structure. Mm-hmm. I've always dealt, I mean, down to I remember hearing our last Attorney General, not our last, one of our Attorney Generals in the name of Mr. Hood, mm-hmm. was saying that it's a party that spends a lot of time calculating and understanding, mm-hmm. mixed with the numbers, mm-hmm. you know, who are registered, who are not, the demographic mix, how it influences or not influences. Yeah. So a lot of that is done by that party and by NNP, so you expect that they would have had a lot of that done already.
I'd be interested, I know in the US and in other territories you have independent polls that are public. In our case, is it likely that we're going to have any of these polls to give some indications to the public?
I suspect some may have been done. But
private poll, but would it be public?
I don't know.
Well, normally what happens, independent polls, people who are not aligned to either party, mm-hmm. But I'm sure in terms of impacting strategy and all of that, I'm sure the parties may have done their own polling to guide them as to what happened with candidates, what they do, where, when, and so. And normally, as Peter Wickham told us the last time, he cannot come out and speak on polls if his client does not instruct him to.
That's correct.
Remember, the client pays you, so you can't come out and say anything. But as you mentioned that, and in terms of references and so on, in marketing and in media studies as well, to a lesser extent, you are brought through a course about propaganda. And as we go through this period, I am observing, interestingly, that we have a lot of propaganda at work. We have comforting propaganda, we have positive propaganda, and we have negative propaganda. Yep. And as you mentioned the polls, I'll go to the comforting propaganda. There was a news story talking about how tight these elections are. I normally don't subscribe to reading that thing, but so I said, let me just read to see who they're citing, where they're citing. Give me statistics, give me numbers. I go in to examine how tight this thing is via constituency, via numbers, and all I see is just a set of feelings. Somebody feels something, somebody hears something, and that's it. And that's not how that is done. So unless you could cite an actual scientific poll, and unless you can back up your story with actual numbers, all that is what we call comforting propaganda.
Emotional.
Comforting, to make somebody or some group feel comforted or comfortable. And that is dangerous, right? There are very good uses, and we have people in Grenada who have studied the art of propaganda. And as I say, in marketing we do it, in media it is done, but you have to find the right ways to use it. I am not sure that it has been done the right way, and some of us are recognizing it. We're not stupid, right? But they should, those who so feel are so crafty with it, they should come better. Because if you're going to say the elections are tight, you need to provide data of this tightness. Because as you said, Mr. Campbell, and you too, Senator Dialli, it's a science. It's driven by data. That's what it's driven by.
Well, I think that is part of the silly season time. Go ahead, Byron.
I want to make a point because I think this is a good time to do it, Brenda, Chris, about information and reliable information and accurate information. I think particularly in this time, let me say this first. On Wednesday, there's this program on GBN, and it was on Wednesday with, and it had to deal with Joseph, Women and
Election
Politics, Election Watch, and you had one Andrea Rapier, and she's representing Power, to understand, and Katisha Williams was on the NNP, and you had Claudia Joseph on the NBC. Claudette Joseph. I thought it was interesting. I looked at it, but what I want to bring out here is the use of statistics. And in two cases, and I'm open about this, it's on record, that Claudette, sorry, why am I saying Claudia? Claudette, and the issue was dealing with poverty, because this is a very current issue, poverty. You know, in any election time, poverty is does everybody want to solve poverty, and it's 0%, whatever. But on more than one occasion, Claudette referred to the poverty rate at 45%. And this was then supported by Andrea, Ms. Rapier, at over 40%. Now, and this is important that we do some fact check on numbers, because when you repeat it and you repeat it and you repeat it, people believe it. There's no way our numbers is any close to that. And I think we have to give a lot of respect to the professional persons in the Grenada Statistical Office, because the information is there. And if there was referencing, for example, and the last report that was done on poverty is 2018-2019. This is World Bank, Government of Grenada, so this is not somebody pulling figures anywhere. And what this report says, that poverty rate decreased significantly from 37.7% in 2008 to and 2009 to 25% in 2018-2019. What they're projecting also in the most recent World Bank, and that with the COVID there, you could have had fluctuation of additional 5% or 7%, bringing it to 32 maybe, but this has been adjusted downwards. So you can't use, it's irresponsible to use 40%, over 40%, 45%, because you have no basis. You have to be accurate, you have to quote your sources, and it's an important report that is available and anybody want it, I could send it to them. It's available at the statistical office. So when you have to respect the statistical office, else because it's costly to maintain this office.
Did any of these ladies cite their source?
No, that's the other thing. Another number that was thrown out again was 80% female-headed household. That's false, because when you make that point, because we know that female-headed households they have further stresses, because we know, for example, the average in terms of who a headed household, working headed households provided for, they have more siblings to support. So usually there's a lot of more pressure, more poverty related issues with women headed households. So if you say 80%, you see what you're connoting here, it is 47%, yeah? So we need to be real about numbers when we put out numbers. We all have a responsibility. And I thought it was important to raise this point this morning, Chris.
Well, I mean, hence my initial thing about silly season.
Yeah.
You know, because here it is, these are persons putting forward themselves for leadership and representation of our islands and so on, and our country and the office.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here it is, I don't want to say I don't want to say fabricated, but again, fact-checked information.
Fact check,
But when you go there and give that kind of false information, it's to whip up a certain type of emotions within your base and to get people to say this is a failed state or this country has been in dire straits, and forget all the reports from the IMF and the World Bank. They don't know what they're talking about. We know what we're talking about. It's all about whipping that up, and hence my thing about the silly season aspect of politicking around this time. But it does a disservice, in my view, in two ways. First of all, wrong information is given to the public, and those of us who don't want to fact check like you will believe it's like social media, see nonsense on social media and believe it. And then the other aspect of course is that you tend to not give people an understanding of what you represent. If you are willing to give this kind of information without fact-checking and being accurate to some degree, then it says something about you, in my view, about your character and what it is about. So because at least I think our people should be given an opportunity to say, well, this could be serious or not serious. But here again comes the issue of debating. And having politicians from various sides engage in debating. Because if you were one of the persons on a panel with that debate, you would have asked them about it.
I pull them up immediately.
And then they would have had to backtrack or whatever and say something else. And that is some of the issues, and that's why we miss having a debate. To challenge people on what they put forward.
People who host programs and so you have to be aware. I know it's a lot of work, but it has to be done. You must read, you must check. Whoever is coming on, what are we going to be talking about? You run the gamut of information that would surface, that you could check. And they don't like it when you check them, because they figure when you're hosting something, you should just sit like a little wallflower while they go to town and everything else.
And I keep saying,
it's a disservice to the public.
There's a lot of things to say about form. You could be, as Brenda was saying, the propaganda is all about form. But where is the substance in what you're putting forward in terms of your policy? And from where I sit, I may, the ordinary man on the street who you believe may accept the form and not the substance, you may think that is what they want. And you may believe that they will buy into that. Not generally so, not necessarily so. Or people are what we call, street economics and street understanding. You might be surprised how they do analysis.
And talking about street, there is this, it's so many things happening. There's this interesting video that is going viral, as we see, in the cyberspace. Right, so there was this, Kate Lewis had this meeting in Northeast in a place called the Cocoa. Well, there was real action in the Cocoa Friday night. The Prime Minister played himself up there too. So there was this lady, she came up she's a party supporter. I guess she's a villager. So the lady came up on the stage, and the people were having a time. So she basically telling them, she's speaking to her neighbors, to her peers, to ordinary party supporters. She's an ordinary woman. She's not no leader. She's not a representative or either. She's just speaking in the language that they understand and that we understand as well. And she's saying to them, watch. Probably be able to say, probably get ice cream or, whatever it is she said. Man, that has gone viral. Look at them. They are offering people ice cream. Let us contextualize things. Except we want to make a joke because some people had it like, a fun thing.
Yeah.
But some people has taken it on, as if they're getting a heart attack. And this is what they're offering to people. And ice cream, if you don't behave, they're going to give you ice cream. And there was just a simple woman on stage talking to her people in her village, in her party. My God, why we keep surface scraping?
Silly season. That's all I want to say to you, brother.
Why we keep surface scraping?
That type of politics have been with us for as long as I could remember.
Yeah.
We take things and song bites and take it. I mean, in social media now, it's amplified much hundredfold.
Yeah.
Because in the olden days, it's newspaper or radio. You had to listen. Now it's on viral and everything. So you take song bites and you do all kind of nonsense with it. But again, I come back to the point that, we don't engage in quality debating. And I want to find out from whoever is putting up themselves, let's assume you're talking economics and economic policy and country and what it is you're going to be doing. What it is you're going to be doing different from what we have now. In this current environment, what is happening with our economics? You have inflation, you have debt, you have this, you have that, you have security issues. What it is that we as a nation and what you're putting forward as a policy is going to challenge those things.
So Chris, are we going to have this debate? I mean, can for example, the organization you belong to, the chamber, and who else, I don't know, the NGO, put some kind of debating mechanism together?
I don't think it will happen.
You don't think
because
it will happen?
the times, I mean, we have
not
what?
gonna happen.
Parliament was dissolved today, effective today.
Yeah.
We have nomination day on the 1st of June, and the 23rd is voting day. So the issue becomes, within that time frame, when you look at the incumbents still have a number of their members to launch coming up in the next couple of weeks and so on.
Business.
It's party business. I don't see them taking the time out to get involved in a debate. And when you start to organize these debates, they always want to know about the rules and who's going to be there and so on. It's very involved.
That's why it's not because, and that's why I'm saying that I don't think it would happen. And, you always give people a second chance, but because of my involvement in it in the last election cycle, and because of so many of the shenanigans that happened in the background by all of them, it would not happen. It just will not happen. Because it's the same players involved, whether it's new faces or not, it's the same engines involved in either party, and it's like, so who's coming? So who's this? Oh, I'm not appearing at so-and-so. Oh, so-and-so. So, to be honest with you, I don't see it happening. What we have to do, especially with these smart devices we have, is to be cued in, ask questions, listen, do our own digging, because you are hearing a lot of things, a lot of the things that are being said in terms of putting forward new ideas. Yes, there may be some new ideas, but there are a lot of things that already exist in some way, shape, or form. But because people, maybe because, I don't know if the incumbent has been doing it for a while, so they have not seen it fit to put stuff out there, but there are a lot of things that are being said that already exist. Well, so, it's just to show some, so you have to, when you hear it, you're like, oh, do we have this? Let me go and see what obtained now. Oh, this part of it sounds good. Or maybe, we could tweak it and improve like this. So you have to start weighing things like that. Would it work in this environment? For instance, you may want to know, because when we sign off, and you gentlemen know this better than me, when we sign on with people like the IMF or so, this goes from government to government. This is not about the NDC and the NNP. No, so whoever is there, sign on behalf of the government and people of Grenada, whoever that government is, have to, go on. So when you start hearing, okay, how does that change?
No, well, it's more than that, Brenda. To me, it's how will some of the things work? And I heard one side, party side, you have to dream big. And I have no problems in dreaming big.
Yeah.
But when it comes to politics and government, we have a 2035 plan. You could say that is dreams that we have.
Yes.
But the dreams must be put within a certain context and a certain realism. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you must, when you say, for example, that you're going to take away contracts and make everybody on the established public service, and you have a law in Grenada that speaks about the wage bill must impart 8 or 9% of GDP, and this is an agreement you have had with IMF and the country have signed on to. How is it you're going to do these things unless you're going to go to Parliament and repeal the law, and then it's going to affect all that you do internationally in terms of attracting funding and so on. So there must be questions around what it is you want to do with these ideas that you're coming and how it's going to work. Up to now, we haven't seen manifestos from either side.
Well,
and the question is whether or not this will ever happen now. Because the manifesto was like a kind of policy document that is put out by the parties to say, in health, this is what we're going to do in health, this is where we like to see it done, and this is how we're going to do it. You're not hearing the how at all.
But Chris, it's important because over the weekend, actually, on the NDC site, it was referenced to go to their website. So I went there actually looking for policy. But most of the information there, certainly the manifesto is from the last election. The opening comments is from the last political leader since Nazim Burke time. So all their websites, all the current information needs to be updated now. And as you say, I wonder if there's time. But I'm disappointed because particularly not so much at the leadership level, Brenda, but at the constituency level, where I think that some debates might be still possible. I think there is time, Chris. At that level, at the local level, I think. But Brenda, Senator mentioned that, Diali that is, mentioned that the Parliament is being the dissolution of Parliament, or that's how it's called, Chris?
Yes,
dissolution.
Dissolution of Parliament.
Not the prorogation. Prorog is when it rests to start again.
But Brenda, this is significant because that means that our colleague here, Senator, the right here, don't say that, just Senator.
This is the last
time. The right is a very particular
Today's the last day for me to call you Senator.
Senator, yeah. So I want to say this. I want to congratulate you, Senator, officially that is, on your service to the people, government, the people of Grenada, for what, 20 years, 40, how long? 14 years. That's a long time, huh? My reflection over the period, Chris, what a job, man. Congratulations,
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And my question is, and I'd certainly like to respond to that, how it feels, what you felt your contribution was, and how you're transitioning, meaning that have you identified someone, have you been grooming someone, you have someone in mind that you're going to recommend? I know it's a democratic process and all that.
But the organization he represents have to recommend.
Well, yes, of course, but he can influence.
Of course he would play a big part in it, yes.
Well, the ride in the Senate has been...
So, now you're really going in June?
Yes.
But you're still a young man. You still have time on your hands.
No, it's not about that. It's all about, you feel you have made a contribution. I think I did. And I also believe that, there's time for new perspectives. No pun intended on our program.
True.
But new ideas, give people the opportunity to come and serve as well, and serve at the highest body in the country, and make an impression or make an input. And in my 14 plus years, I believe that one of my main objectives of entering the Senate, apart from representing our private sector as best as I could have, was to demystify some of the legislation for the ordinary person and put it in language and put it in discourse that at least they can have an idea, either for or against, but give them an open forum, a balanced forum, where they could think about this and say, okay, I believe this could work, or I disagree or agree. So that was one of my main objectives of being in the Senate, to kind of get that communication down to that level so that people could understand, the ordinary man on the street could understand what we do at that level. Because sometimes people don't look at parliamentary procedures at all because they think it's boring, they don't understand it, they don't understand the implication to them personally or otherwise. So it was about that for me. and hopefully I was able to do that in some degree.
You did.
And I always felt it wasn't a forum for playing politics. You have your political suasion. It's designed that way. You have the incumbent, you have an opposition, and in the Senate we had opposition senators. So it has that political element. For me as an independent senator, I think I wasn't there to play politics. I will criticize the government when I need to and compliment them when I need to. And I thought that was the balance we needed to bring. And when I served as chairman of Public Council Committee and also as a member, I also felt we should have changed the remit of the Public Accounts Committee. Public Accounts Committee traditionally was always very political. The chair of the Public Accounts Committee would come and hammer the government on the politics and the policy. My role, I thought, as PAC chair and otherwise, was to see how we could improve systems in the government and governance. You would have departments, you would examine them and their accounting from the government and the AG and the Accountant General, and it was about identifying weaknesses for me and seeing how we could help strengthen it so that the institution itself gets stronger and the governance from them gets stronger and by extension the transparency. So I thought and I wanted to bring a different flavor, and I hope I did to some extent. And you know, it was about, I do have a regret though. I can tell you that. I started looking into piloting some sort of legislation and to develop it with the blessings of our Prime Minister, of course. And that was to deal with benefits for parliamentarians overall. And let me quickly just say what I'm talking about. You know, in other jurisdictions, there is legislation that governs if our Prime Minister have served for 3 terms consecutively. When he leaves or when he retires, there must be something that goes with him and stays with him for his life. Whether it is a diplomatic passport, whether it is a pension of a certain amount, security to a certain level. Certain things must stay with people when they serve extended periods of time.
Like the President of the United States.
Correct.
I think in our case it's only the GG.
Only GG is guaranteed a pension.
Gets everything guaranteed,
right
whether
up to
they in or
life.
out until they die.
And it is not, to me, it's not about cost because things could vary. So that we have had senators who have served in the past and have retired years ago from Gary's time to now, and some of them are like paupers.
Correct.
Right, because there is nothing in legislation to say they're guaranteed this, or you know, you could have a passport or official passport for X amount of time. There's nothing, and that doesn't cost us.
But is this an initiative that can continue?
Well, I would hope so. I started the research, but I never got it to the point where, you know, I could presented a draft so that I could be piloted through. But you know, we
so
always
put it in the things to continue file. When you hand over, to your new person,
but,
you put it in the things to continue.
You know, I want to end by saying, you know, I want to express thanks to a few people. First of all, my private sector, my chamber and the GHTA. I got excellent support where they supported me throughout this entire time I was there. And of course, you know, we have some unsung heroes in the parliament that we never talk about. The back office people and what they do and the support. The clerks, I think I served with about 4 or 5 different clerks over that time. And, you know, they give excellent support. And remember, you know, in Grenada's parliament, as a senator, if a piece of legislation on education comes, we have nobody we could talk to. We have no research officers as in other parliaments to help us develop our thoughts on this particular paper and what we need to say and so on. So you're kind of on your own and you have to rely on friends either in the legal community and a particular sector to talk to them and get their feedback. So it is one of those things where the back office staff in the parliament gives really super support.
That's great.
You know, and you must compliment them and the clerk and his staff. And I think, you know, it's just one of those things that we're quick to jump up and say, you know, parliamentarians have pension after 2 terms and this and that. But we are the lowest paid parliamentarians in our region.
That's correct.
Right? OECS even worse. You know, I remember going one time to a parliamentary thing in a session in Trinidad, and they asked us what we just get paid in Grenada, you know. And I couldn't say. I was so ashamed. Because when you hear some of the other guys and what they were getting paid, and then they ended up saying, Chris, you don't want to say because you're too well paid.
You
And I left it like that.
It's something else, It's a real kind of bittersweet thing because at one end of the spectrum is that everyone who puts himself, with a senator, parliamentarian, constituency rep, even people in political parties, people go to them for everything. Everything.
Thank you for your service.
They don't pick the resources of a tree. They don't pick the money of a tree. I mean, 5 o'clock in front of somebody's door. They might be trying to catch up with their wife or
Mark
something.
Isaac had it a nice way, He used to change about $300 in $5 bill. So, every time, Mark had his
who
own.
told me they did that to Sylvester Quallis? He said he would change up his salary into small bits so he could, And they do that. And then when it's time to compensate, we seem to have an issue with it.
Yeah, because
I think we really have to find a way to treat ourselves better.
The Prime Minister had a study done on increases for parliamentarians and public officers and so on, ministers and so on. And Prime Minister couldn't touch it and put it forward because it's so sensitive and we had so many things happening at the time. Timing. And let me just say to the public, when I joined the Senate, my salary was $800 and something a month to sit in the Senate.
To sit down up there?
Yeah,
okay.
And to
How much
examine...
for the seat?
And to examine all that we do and the amount of research. And when it comes to doing budget, you have to take days to analyze and go through the documents. So, a lot of people must be thinking, oh, these guys are paid huge amounts of money and they sit there and so on. It's not. And it's more about national service than anything else. And of course, last thing, my president of the Senate, Senator Humphrey, I must say, he has been one of the best that I have served with. When we started, he was sitting next to me on the floor
as a senator.
As a senator.
Labor.
And then he went up to being the president. But he is one of the most knowledgeable parliamentarians we have and understands the rules and the procedures. Being his deputy for the last 4 or 5 years has been an experience. I learned so much from him.
Great.
And, it is one of those things that you will treasure because it gives you that kind of...
So you do have the experience in the event that, I don't know, whatever, to serve as a president in the future.
Well, yes, if I want to.
That's important experience. I will note it.
Senator, I think you really did a really good job as a senator. I think you became one of our new age senators, so to speak, because you came in at a time where the senatorship was people going to Senate, sometimes you wonder what they're really saying, what they're really representing, what they're really doing. And so you brought in a new wave, a lift, if you will, of discourse. And I always loved the discourse in the Senate because of the diversity of the people represented and the dynamics. So I would queue into the Senate all day long. But the Parliament, not so much. Right? So I always really enjoy because it's rich. You're right about Senator Humphrey. I always thought that you were a straight shooter. That you always went, whatever it was, you had to say and you let the chips fall where they may. And yes, you did simplify and educate us on a lot of things that was so superfluous and lofty in the upper house of the Parliament. And we really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your service. I mean, you run a company that is a massive company, a very successful company, lots of demands on your time, your family, and you were there through and through. 14 years is a long time to give in service in that way, and we often don't appreciate those things.
And to answer you, Byron, I have identified some money I think the private sector could look at to replace me, so it is up to them after the person meets with them and so on. So,
so I would say you've been responsible.
Yes.
Yeah, I did identify a successor, I think.
And it's quite possible.
And continue to mentor whoever it is.
Of course.
Because it can be very cumbersome. I don't know what sort of training takes place. I know Sir Curtis Sean used to love to do that. And Senator Humphrey is that kind of individual as well.
Yes.
And Mr. Pear. I think we have really two of the best, human beings doing that in terms of their skill and their temperament and all of that.
Their knowledge.
And their knowledge.
Very knowledgeable.
It is not something that anybody, and they bring that sort of reverence, if you will, to it.
And bear with me, Senator, it may take a while for me to drop the senatorial title. I mean, it's
that's how midnight tonight.
No, that's how I know.
They're no longer parliamentary reps, and they're no longer senators.
All I'm saying is the name might stay with me. But here's a
We
question.
shall call you Senator forever.
But Senator, I've
Our
I've
ancestors.
raised this question for you before because the private sector issue, well, not limited to, but has to do with health insurance. And I'm aware that I know the government has been discussing. Well, it's beyond discussion. I mean, there was certain structure set up for the National Health Insurance Scheme. But I'm not going there. Regular health insurance, Senator. The present companies operate on the basis that when you attain the age of 70, for most members of their schemes, like Sagicor and others, I can call them by names, you're no longer qualified. It's not a question of having certain ailments before. Has to do with age. It's an ageism issue that they operate on the basis that once you turn 70, you're no longer, it's no longer a good business venture on their part, So it doesn't matter that you've been insured for 40 years and you had very negligible claims other than maybe a dental or eyeglasses, that they've made money from you, significant money. But you reach 70, you're disqualified. I don't know of any other country, certainly not the United States, large countries, where an insurance company will dismiss you on the basis of your age, that we can no longer they're not saying to you, okay, you're at higher risk, we're going to raise your premium. They're not saying that. They're saying we no longer can cover you.
Right.
That's reckless, that's irresponsible, and I submit it's illegal. I mean, something's wrong with that.
Well, it's all about risk. It's all about risk for the insurance and large extent the numbers game.
Yeah.
So what you can do in an American market with the numbers, you can't do in a Grenada country with the numbers that are on health insurance, and probably Caribbean-wide or OECS-wide. And then cross 70, the demographics and the statistics will show that you become a higher risk of major implications or major medical issues.
Yeah.
So you may then have operations, hip replacements, whatever the case may be, because of aging.
Yeah.
And for them, it is a risky situation because most insurance, my health insurance says that at 60, I can go with it. If I retire from business, I'm still allowed to keep it. But as you say, some of them at 70, they tell you, we no longer could cover you because of whatever reason.
Yeah.
And hence the importance of national health insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because,
that's why I raised it too.
Yes, with you losing that at 70, when you probably will most need it in terms of medicals and so on.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Hence, we need to have an NHI in place that will keep you and give you some help at that age of your life when you have, is a pension, you're a pensionable person and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it is critical that NHI come in to assist with the same issue you have identified.
Yeah.
And most of these insurance companies wouldn't go there.
Yeah, and the one that you have at work with your company, it may not always be the only one you should have. Because at the end of the day, it may not be the best serving one for you. So there needs to be something that buffers, so to speak.
Well, some of
when
us,
you have,
like my wife would have her insurance at her place. I have mine at ours.
Yeah.
Well, we both keep it. We keep our individual insurances, different companies, but it helps you with the claim. So where you have an 80-20 thing, you could claim on your wife's own and it will come up a little more. So you might get to 90% of recovering the claim. And it becomes significant if you have a major operation that is costing you $40,000-$50,000. Then as numbers go up, your input. So it is, people have to understand it as well and use it as much as you can, where you can, but as I say, hence the reason we need NHI.
Okay.
We seriously do. Back to the politics.
So I want to bring up this point, Byron. When you look at the two campaigns, so far, NNP's style is different. They're still on their platforms, going to jurisdictions, doing the big crowd kind of thing. Whereas NDC is doing these town hall meetings in the various constituencies, a one-on-one kind of thing. So the strategies are a little different at this point in time. I don't know with the announcements of the dates how it will change and move. And you're seeing what you call the motorcades happening on one side, not on the other side yet. So you're seeing all of that. My question to you.
NDC has had motorcades.
Okay. So my question to you, with COVID as it is now, and we're up to 1,489 active cases based on the last dashboard
See,
that
I
we
was
saw.
right. I told you by now we'll be at 15.
Yeah,
15, yeah.
Oh, multiply that by 8. Remember those who not going and text, those who just sit on
By
phone.
8?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
So,
Okay.
I mean, with that, and with all the other islands where we saw elections happening, Barbados is a good example, in recent memory, Trinidad to some example. Right after elections, you see this spiking again and shooting up serious, and then we are carnival right around the corner.
Yeah.
So the issue is, and the question to you and Brenda is, with that COVID thing looming in the back, do you think the strategy in how we campaign should change or should be more, controlled in terms of the COVID thing that is still in the background there, and we could see serious spiking after and pressures on the system?
You want me to go? Chris, one thing that's different though with COVID-19 in the past and COVID-19 in the future is the strain. That one previously with the Delta, this was certainly more deadly. My concern now with COVID in terms of the infection rates that we see and that's going up is that its effects on productivity, because persons that are, you're not getting very ill or you're not going to die, but you're certainly not going to work. So it means you're not producing, you're no longer productive. And a lot of organizations where they're staffing, critical staff being out for 2 weeks, it's a problem, and that's going to affect our productivity and by extension our wealth generation. So the question is now, as you pose it, you look at the two styles. Well, at least today, this can change. That the larger crowds, I agree, and to some extent, both political organizations are operating with the crowd, with the rallies. But certainly, it may be a bit more cost-effective, maybe in terms of cost, having the town hall meetings where you're depending more on the social platforms rather than the more public television and rallies, physical people. But at the same time, I think that the question of vaccination should continue. We should continue to promote this. A person should be encouraged to be vaccinated because we know it saves lives and it prevents you from getting very ill. So this is still active, and I would like to see more of that happening, certainly. Yes, I think political parties should review those strategies, particularly as infection rates continue to climb. It's still, what is a imaginable rate? I mean, some countries have zero tolerance, so even 5 or 2 or 10 infections is too much. They're not going to tolerate that, so their measures are designed to avoid this. So yes, I think there should be a look at it. There should be a review of it, particularly as we know it's going to affect production.
Yeah, and I certainly agree that the productivity issue is a big one that is coming up.
I think the fact that the current strain is not as potent, the fact that we keep saying, the fact that we keep saying and living of that we have to live with COVID. The fact that outside of political gatherings we are having other major gatherings.
Brenda, very true.
And life is continuing. So as we encourage everyone to be responsible with everything else, I think that's what we should do.
I mean, vaccinations are not moving.
Yeah, it's not moving.
It's 88,000 and it is there still.
Just to the numbers as of May 13th. May 13th was when? Saturday?
Friday or thereabout?
No, Friday. 1,588 cases.
Chris, the other angle is that if you know that you're considered vulnerable, like for age or some conditions previously, then avoid crowds.
Wear your mask. Sanitize.
So the response, or don't go. So the responsibility is still very much. So whereas Brenda was out gallivanting with the Mother's Day parties,
I won't use the word gallivanting.
Well, having a good time.
You see how I spoil you all? I made this like a homebody and reading how much books and things. And it's lying,
Chris, I stayed home
for
the entire time, so that's the point I'm making.
Who make you stay home?
Well, I feel vulnerable,
So let me throw another thing on the table for you guys.
I'm a social butterfly.
You're hearing a lot of things about the pension and the pension issue and the incumbent this was a bad time for the decision to come out, and it
Yeah.
probably would play into the numbers and who vote for them or don't vote for them. And then you're hearing that the incumbent, haven't done what they should have in relation to the pension. Although in the May Day celebrations, the TUC president was quite clear in his remarks that you have to be careful of the leader of the NDC and what he says with laborers and workers and so on the labor side, because who he represents and what he has done in the past representation. I know Mr. Mitchell came back, Deacon that is, and countered some of what was said there. But do you think this pension issue is going to be a major consideration in the way people vote come the 23rd?
Chris, mixed feeling on this. Let me give you an example. I gave
especially getting the people who are on the fence.
I gave someone a ride recently, and going to work. I think it was a security officer. He was a security officer, and I like to give these real examples. And he has some concern about the pension. He doesn't have a pension, but he feels that he has to pay for this pension, and he's not comfortable about it.
He's right, he had to pay.
So yes, I think, how many pensioners? Yeah, so to some extent, I think it is already known and felt that regardless of the political party winning the election, that the pension will be honored. It should be honored because it's a law. It's a court decision. So it's a question of how it's going to be done. What's the strategy by either of the party winning the upcoming election? How they're going to do it? Well, what I've heard so far, let's say from the NDC, and I'm sick. Where's my confidence on this? If I was a pensioner, what the NDC have outlined, what I recall, was my take home from the conversation is that we will honor the law pension. We're going to raise this money by court decision. We're going to raise this money via locally and regionally, internationally through inexpensive loans but that's the point you're making. We're going to raise the money. We're going to borrow it. What they were not heavy on is how it's going to pay back and who's going to be paying it. How are we going to raise the wealth? How are we going to generate the wealth to do it? They were very soft in this, or very not much conversation on that aspect of it. But certainly saying we're going to do it. We're going to raise the money. We're going to pay you. Yeah.
Well, I mean, to me, going to a financial institution to raise money to pay wages is not something that is any financial institution.
No,
and pension is a form of wage.
Yes,
right?
It's not
very few
attractive
financial institutions will go there.
Yeah.
So you will have to go via bonds and floating bonds, in my view.
Exactly.
That's it.
Chris, but at the same time, and I made a note on this, at the same time, we're hearing that, what I had echoing from the NDC is that there's been a windfall from the leadership there. There's been a windfall at the port in terms of revenue for the government based on the increased freights and other taxes, because VAT is charged on that total cost. CIF. And therefore we're going to begin to zero rate. Our policy would be to zero rate a whole line of foods, whether it's smoke area, whatever, a number of foods.
Foreign descent.
Exactly. And for example, one of them, agricultural inputs. Well, I want to say that agricultural inputs are already zero rated. So they need to do their homework on these things, But the question is, as you speak about reducing government revenue, because that's what it amounts
to. How are you
to.
making up for the shortfalls?
So it's a bit of a contradiction for me. At one point you're saying, look, we're gonna give more back, and that's okay, it sounds great, but you're not saying how you're gonna raise money. You need more revenue. So that's
the other contradiction for me is going on the international market to raise funding to deal with the pension liability, whatever those numbers turn out to be. You have to go with the country having a certain credit rating in order to attract the interest rates that they're proposing. But here you say this on this side. And on the other side, you're saying you're making everybody permanent on the public sector side, raising the salaries and wages thing in the public sector from, if we have 3,000 or 6,000, you're going to make that 9,000 employees, whatever we have. You spoke about Imanis, you're going to make them permanent and so on. So how are you going to manage that with the IMF and all these international bodies and get attractive financing to deal with that? So it shows to me from where I sit
Yeah.
a level of deep understanding. I don't want to use the word maturity, but deep understanding of what the national funding and economies are. And I know they have people on the team that's supposed to know
That's
better.
familiar with it,
That
yes.
is familiar. So
right.
it is a little disappointing at times
Yeah.
to hear
Yeah.
how they,
Yeah.
and again, the big question here is the how. As I said earlier, we have a lot of form. We have substance. And that is something.
How is the money going to be raised?
My thing on-
Productivity. I'm not hearing this.
My thing on the pension that you asked, and whether it's an election issue, in terms for every Grenadian, it must be something that we all weigh on our minds
Yeah.
and think about and listen to, just basically what is the situation, what are the variables, and so on. I would like to side with a lot of the things that was said last week by our special guest panelist, Mr. Ambrose Phillip, agreeing that it is not a political issue. This needs to remove itself from the political platforms. This is not a political issue the way we are doing it. If it should be part of the policy now for each party, but it is not a political issue the way we are going at it. We need to stop. It is a national issue. I would also want to agree with him the borrowing part, the concerns about us borrowing. Where are we going to borrow? How are we doing this? Raising loans. And the fact that once we dole out all this money, we would have this windfall. But we're not investors. We are typically savers. So I don't see the windfall, right? And really a lot of the instruments and suggestions he made, I think, as I said, it was so sobering. These are things that are worthy of exploration. Instead of us trying to put blame and cast aspersions and make it seem like if it's a salary increase that didn't happen.
Yeah.
No, it is something bigger than that. It is a continuous thing and we all will be impacted by it. So I just think we need to be more sober about
And I would just add,
how we go through this discussion and just remove the
I would
the
just
party
add to this,
politicking
Brenda,
from
that
it.
you may like an MP, you may not like them, but this is the only government, and since this
Correct.
issue from 1983 to now,
Yeah.
have tackled it in any form or fashion.
Yeah.
With the last thing with the 70% joint between them and NIS, to give people some sort of pension who never had anything at all. So you must indeed say, give them credit for looking to tackle it head on in some form. Yes, this new ruling changes a lot of things and what is going to happen. So, as I say, you may like that politics or not. The other thing that Ambrose indicated that would be considered, he talked about debt service levy just to deal with this issue. So we as Grenadians had to be prepared to pay true taxes if that is the way they
But
go.
of course,
That
it
to
will be one
finance
of the
this.
ways.
And as Byron, you said, I had a worker in the private sector say to me, Mr. Dale, I have a difficulty with this. Why I must be given a debt service levy to pay pension for people in government and in the public service, when, I myself may not have any pension except NIS. And you have these things coming into
And
your
you
mind.
see, that's a fallout of the legislation. Because, in hindsight, you would like to think had the PRG had more time, how this would have fleshed itself out.
Correct.
Because I do not believe their intention was bad.
No.
You
The
see?
intent
It
of
did not-
NIS.
yeah,
Remember,
it did
in
not
those days,
flesh,
public servants had this gratuity and 100% funded
It did not
pension.
flesh itself out
Those
well.
self-employed people and people on the outside and so on, and some private sector companies had
Yeah.
pension for their employees.
Yeah.
The intent of the PRG at that time, I was wrong, was that, Byron would know
Everybody.
better than me, everybody must have some sort
because
of
prior nobody
benefits.
had except the public workers.
That's right.
Right.
And
So,
that is what they did. That was and the
Yeah.
intent is golden. You cannot get away from that. Probably how we did it and constitutionally and so on. As you say, if they had more time, I remember again they suspended the constitution, so they could have done it that way. But
Of course,
when
but
it
they didn't
came
have to go
back,
through all the
when it came back, it created the problems, and that is where we are with
People's
that.
law, and that's the thing. As much as we herald them, I believe, right, and it's a period that I'm most excited about, right? I believe that if the PRG did not institute people's law, all know so we still finishing the international airport.
Yeah, well,
All know so we still trying to sort out NIS. All know so we trying to sort out marketing board. Because the way we typically do business, the way we typically govern, how we have to go through this and go through that, People's law was made to circumvent that. And that is why they were able to achieve so much in such a short time.
Long live the revolution.
Yeah.
But just
Forward ever.
Forward ever, backward.
you hear them people
Yeah.
waxing political and thing here this morning. I'm
Right.
going to form a
It's who we
party.
are, it's who we are, right?
But you know, so really and truly, and that this is where I would like to side with Mr. Philip again.
Yeah.
In that we just can't continue to, we have had, and that's where the error was made. 7 successive governments thereafter,
But that-
40 years later,
Yeah.
what have they done? Hello? No clean hands.
Yeah, no, yeah, no.
No clean hands.
Because
Let
you
us
all
give
understand the
credit to
implications.
who tried. You see? No clean hands. So let us just move forward. And to the person who tell you why I have to pay, listen. The nurses served.
Yeah.
The doctors served.
The police.
The police served. The road workers served. So this is at the point where we remove our selfishness and become selfless in the national interest. And that is why nobody can tell me, shut my mouth, I'm not a public servant. Hello, I have to pay for it too.
Yeah, that's correct. Collective responsibility. Because something in the news last week, Brenda, the, how do you call it, the opening ceremony or the ground turning ceremony for the sword turning for the Seamoon Cultural
That's
Center.
a big deal.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That brought me mind back to semi-final
Yes,
Carnival.
it's a big
Calypso.
deal. That's a
Look,
big deal. That's
I'm
a big
anxiously
deal.
awaiting this
That's
project
a big
because I
deal.
understand there's going to be facilities
Yes,
for
yeah,
conferences,
yeah.
something in the north, something in the... I really look forward to this.
Seamoon
This
had
is-
a vibe, eh?
Yeah.
When
Always.
it touched the ground, it had a feeling.
Always.
Just had a...
All of us will go semi-final.
You're old enough for that, Brenda?
I am old enough,
Okay,
yes.
I don't know, just-
But you know, I was going to Calypso
But there is-
Festival since the age
There
of
is that.
11.
There is the Molyneux Road. That contract is close to being awarded. No, it's awarded.
And that's nothing to do with the
Just
election. It's something
and
that's...
then,
No.
of course, the sword turning ceremony for Intercontinental in St. David's as well.
Yeah.
Hotel,
Yeah,
yeah.
so there was some-
300 permanent
Yeah,
jobs.
there was
And
some major...
Intercontinental, those are serious
That's
people.
a
Those are
wow.
serious
That's
people.
a wow.
Those
Those are
are
serious
some
investments,
significant
yeah.
ones in the
Yeah.
last few weeks. And you know, we may go to the city season thinking it's
That's his election project?
election,
So
yeah.
the-
Hold on,
Election
everyone's
project.
in train. Oh, you see, you take
No, I know.
to come up with
I
that.
know that,
I'm just asking. I don't know.
But let me ask you another
Yeah.
question, Byron. You know, my last thing in the Senate, my last contribution was an amendment to the people's, what do you call it, public thing for putting symbols on the ballot box.
ballots.
And we have 2. We have Power and we have, I think, Smiling Sun.
Yeah.
I think
Power
Power
has
is
the,
Miss Rapier.
that's Andrea Rapier's Power.
Yes.
I think it's the seal that's like on the osprey.
Yeah, it's an osprey.
Yeah.
It's an
An osprey.
osprey.
It's an osprey.
And Smiling Sun, well, I don't know who represents
Smiling
Smiling Sun.
Sun?
I don't know. And probably somebody will call us or WhatsApp us.
Can the smiling sun please step forward?
You know, and so, but my question is around independence.
Right.
And people who want to represent in this particular election cycle as independents versus the incumbents, NNP, and
Right,
of course,
right.
the established NDC. And, you know, by extension, you know, what happens to the leader of the opposition, well, who's no longer the leader of the opposition now, you know, he doesn't seem to have a party. And, you know, what will happen? Would he still run
you
as an
know that?
independent? Well, he said NDC he didn't go with NDC for whatever reasons, and he's no longer part of NNP. So it's either he comes with a new party or he runs as an independent.
Oh, right.
But to come with a new party now may be difficult based on the time constraints. So my question around that is, where do you see incumbents? I mean, we have GULP say they're coming with a full slate of candidates on the young
GLP
program.
is always here.
Yeah, so, and there is this war now between Michael Batiste and Mr. Prodom about he doesn't have the right thing in terms to be leader, and he's going to challenge him legally and so on. Do you see that having any effect on this election
Yes,
going
Chris,
forward?
definitely, yes. Because you see, Brenda is looking at me. Emphatically, yes, Brenda. It depends what the objectives of those candidates or these actions are. I don't think the objectives are to win, but the objectives to me seem to be to make a statement, to join in the debate, in the discussions, in the ideas, in the issues, you know. If that is, because it's important to have more than 2 dimensions, so to speak, of the issues. So from this perspective, I welcome it, and I think it's healthy and it's good. Particularly now with social media and other tools available, you don't necessarily have to have this big budget to get your points across in terms of a rally and those type of things. So for the debate, for the issues discussions, I welcome it. But you're not going to win. You're not going to be in
you're
Parliament.
probably trying to see if any of them will be spoilers, kind of.
Well, I went there, no, because let's take Northeast.
It's not going to have
Let's
that
take
effect.
Northeast.
Yeah.
Northeast is where
Yeah.
Tobias
Yeah.
Clement
Yeah.
traditionally won
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and says he's going to represent.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
have Mr. Oliver, and then you have, I think, Ron Redhead from
Yeah,
NDC.
yeah, yeah.
Now, if those votes split and the NDC vote or the people who are with Mr.
Mr. Clement?
Mr.
Clement.
Tobias,
Yeah.
if they don't vote
Yeah.
or they decide to vote for NNP, would that put the NDC
Chris.
You mean who
caretakers-
would benefit from it?
That's right.
No.
Similarly,
Chris,
let's
I
take
said-
St. David's.
Right, yeah,
I'm
Chris.
going to both of them
Go
one
ahead,
time.
yeah, go ahead.
You know, they have the persuader effect in
Yeah.
St. David's, and whether or not that will cause traditional NDC supporters, based on how Mr. Persuader was handled in giving Deacon the constituency.
He didn't give him my information.
Well, whatever,
Yeah.
give or take or whatever
Yeah,
case.
right.
May be. Well, would that a no vote on the sympathizers of Mr. Persuader is basically a vote for NNP. Do you see that having an impact?
Chris, no. I submit these fringe parties are likely to lose their deposits. So their voter support would be
But
negligible.
it's a real consideration, though, because the question is whether or not Mr. Clement can garner enough support. So let's say, remember, constituencies, people have lost by 6 votes.
Yeah.
People have lost by 30 votes.
4. Any
4, right? Yeah, I remember
Carriacou was
4.
a close one as
Carriacou
well.
was 6,
Can happen.
right? Well, they decided the whole election, rather. If 100 people decide, listen, Toby is my man, I going down so. Then you have Ron Redhead, and then you have Nimrod Oliver. What does that 100? Who does that 100 vote
in
upset?
Grenada, we
Affect
don't vote
Who
that
does
way.
it impact?
In Grenada, we vote for who, not necessarily who we like, but we vote for who we think is going to win.
Party?
So-
And it's a
that's what we have to do?
two-party system here.
Okay.
You're going to vote for one of those.
So
parties.
I mean,
those
100
others,
people would
the
go with
others are
Mr.
going to
Toby.
lose their deposits.
So so then you agree with me that those who don't
Lord.
vote
Yeah.
because they don't see a party
Exactly.
traditional,
They won't
is a
vote.
vote for the incumbent.
That's
But
correct.
here's what, though. As you raise the St. David scenario, I don't know all the dynamics there and all the intricacies and or intrigue as it is starting to come out. But you raised something that's critical when you said that people may not like the way Persuader, Adrian Thomas, was treated, and so they may decide. No, you have to across the voting spectrum. That is something, because there are people that are so disenfranchised. Some for the NDC, some for the NNP. And when you talk to some of these individuals, what they tell you, watch, there's no way I could vote for the NNP. And I'm not voting for the NDC because of blah, 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 la, 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 re. Then they would tell you, man, I know I can't do NNP no more. But I can't really deal up with NDC. So some of them have said, I not voting because I just can't. And then 1 or 2 people would say to you, but you know, so-and-so that running, I like her. You know, so-and-so that running, I like him. So if you see my finger stain,
They vote for him or
I
her.
vote for him and I vote for her. I didn't vote for them. We have a lot
Yeah.
of that. When you really
Dynamics.
start talking to people, because people are still telling you, those who are swayed and those who swallow up the Kool-Aid, whether it's yellow or green,
Yeah.
they're on the move.
Yeah.
But then there are those who are telling you, you know, they're like, I don't really know.
Do you think the voter turnout is
I
going
don't
to be
really know.
bigger this time, in this cycle, based on all the emphasis we put in on youth and youth
It's going to be
votes?
more than the last two.
You understand?
I think it's going to be more than the last 2 elections.
The last 3 elections,
Yeah,
we
I
were
think so.
close to 60 or in the 50s.
In the 50s? No, 50s solo? Chris?
50s, yeah, it was
Yeah, 50s, high 50s, high
Before
50s.
we go there, I just want to make a point because you brought up the St. David's issue and what's happening there. I think it's important. Look, And I have friends living in St. David's, and look, some of the information, the communication is like how the deputy political leader was treated, and we put it in this colloquial way. Look, you're the vice captain, you're unable to make the team. You know, it looks bad for their candidate, for their person that they support, and I mean, I think that Persuader would have, in terms of holding the reign of leadership there as the interim leader, and then being elected as the deputy political leader. This is significant.
Yeah.
For me, as a Grenadian, this is significant for me. This is the deputy political leader of the party. This is the person who has served and respected in the party for his ran election before. And so I thought you had to treat him, and that's what's been communicated to me. The respect was not there, you know. And I have not seen Persuader on the stage. I have not heard him as a deputy political leader
He has disappeared.
speaking out. He has disappeared more
That's
or less. So
correct.
what is the message here? What is it saying? You know,
But
and
some
therefore,
people
what
will
is going to be
counter that
the
and say, you know, he has been unsuccessful twice.
Yeah.
Unsuccessful twice
Yeah.
in going up in elections. So why bother stick around with them? They don't seem to have the formula to win.
Mr. Andel
So-
has been unsuccessful 3 times.
Yeah.
This is his 4th
So
election.
you can't use.
Joseph
Yeah, no,
Andel.
I'm just saying,
So
some
we
people
can't-
would say
if
that.
we're going to use that for Adrian Thomas,
Yeah.
then we need to use that for Joseph Andel
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And I went on record. I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys remember
Yeah.
when Dickon Mitchell was elected as the deputy, as a political leader. I said that I liked Adrian Thomas as his deputy,
Yeah.
and I liked what Adrian Thomas had did because you remember
Yeah.
in the public it was communicated
Yeah.
that he stepped aside so Dickon Mitchell could move forward.
Yeah.
And then I remember on the Bob report,
Yeah.
Adrian Thomas said, I think Kellon asked him about it, and basically about, you know, if the leader, if Mr. Mitchell wants to run in St. David, and he said he would, whatever, he would be willing to, you know,
To
whatever the
consider.
leader wants. Yes, he did, you know, so he came across, and I have known Persuader for years. And Adrian is somebody to have on your team.
Very humble.
Yes,
individual.
humble guy. He's a team player. You would not see Adrian out saying anything about the NDC.
Like
that's
Ali.
not
Like
not
Ali,
his style.
Ali. He wouldn't do
That's
Ali.
not his style.
Yeah.
He probably would express, if he is feeling away, he probably would express that to people he's close to.
Yeah.
You see, he's not that type of individual. But what is this? The strongest signal for me, based on everything I've heard, is that Adrian has not stepped forward with it. So that has given me some sort of credence that, hey, something's up.
Yeah.
Because the individual that I think I know and have assessed over the years, I think if he was okay, he would have been out there. So he has probably taken these things. Listen, we are human beings, you know. These things can hurt.
Yeah.
He has probably decided, look, I have to take care of me. I can no longer, if I am not feeling, and I don't know this to be so, but if I am not feeling that I'm wanted after all I have done, and we can say what we want, Persuader had capital in St. David.
Yeah.
Persuader is not somebody that just comes so. Persuader came through school, he came through clubs, he came through Calypso. He has deep roots there. And now, it's only now that he's apparently hurt. People in St. David saying, "Whoa, well, we like," you know, we stop. It's only now we're hearing how much they love Persuader. You see?
Yeah,
So, but the thing about it is that, and you know, we have to be careful. And that's why I always say, I am not sure that I would want, I don't know, it could be really painful in the politics after you've given so much. And, you know, it depends on how you are. And I don't know the dynamics. I won't pretend to know. I've heard a lot of things. You know,
Well,
and I
I raise
just,
it only from the context
Yeah.
of the voting, and
Yeah.
now that we in the real
Yeah.
cycle of
Yeah.
getting ready to vote
Yeah.
and how it can impact.
Yeah.
We
Because
mentioned Ali. They're
Yeah.
different personalities.
Different
That's Ali
personalities.
Dowden.
Yeah.
And, you know, if Ali is a kind of person, Ali's a very brave person, and he's
course,
also a very
of course.
principled person,
Yeah.
based on the interactions I've had with him in the past. So to see somebody like that coming out and say to you, I mean, this.
But
I
he
mean,
also
no matter,
raised the Persuader effect as well.
Yes,
come
he
on, we
raised it.
have to.
Brenda.
There's value in these things. Somebody again like Sylvan in St. Patrick's, Small Axe.
Yeah.
Small Axe is one of the most astute people you would meet about politics. He loved his NDC. I don't know what happened. Along the way, I see he started cursing NDC and he with TGM. I'm like, what happened there? But when you start seeing these things with people like that, you start, well, what's really going on?
Yeah.
So the fact that Small Axe could now come out and sing a whole song endorsing Kate Lewis, she had to impress him.
Something
Because
has
he
to
is
happen.
not an individual. Small Axe is not the kind of person that would just decide a crossing across.
Yeah.
No.
Because that's the nature of politics, one would say. But an interesting thing came up with Ali Dowden on his Facebook
debut.
that I read. And I thought it's important to note for candidates and when you go into politics, the implications. He indicated that in his previous election, he was left with a bill of over $18,000.
Oh, I saw that.
And presently, he has one left over from his last campaign in 2018 of $48,000. That's a lot of money. So he owes all the debts for the rent and for the refreshments, whatever. He has to pay this out of his pocket. So the question is, you must understand the financial obligations and implications when you decide to go into politics, whether your party is covering it, whether it's a personal expense. So for this young man, it's an issue for him more than anything else.
And you know, the thing about it is, I watch the social media interactions regarding Ali Dowden. And I read Saturday when he put that thing out, or yesterday.
Yeah.
And I saw someone who was a former ambassador and government minister under it explaining, okay, you can be disappointed in Ali Dowden. If you say you are disappointed, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's how you feel.
Yeah.
So you own how you feel, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But you cannot tell Ali Dowden how to feel.
Yeah.
And you don't go outlining your experience with NNP to negate what Ali said.
Yeah.
We do not know the entire story of your experience with the NNP.
Yeah.
So how you come in now to tell Ali, well, this is what happened to me, and the Prime Minister said, take him to court, yada, yada, yada. We do not know. As a matter of fact, there are other people with a different side of that story. So say to Ali, I'm disappointed in you, I hope, blah, blah, blah. But don't negate what Ali is saying. Ali feels how Ali feels.
Yeah.
And that's what I keep saying. We can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. And your experience, I cannot negate it. I did not have it. I did not have. All I could say is, Lord, well, I'm sorry that happened, but I never had that experience with him or her. You know?
That
but I can't
financial
negate
thing
it.
is serious and significant. He have a debt of $60,000+ to deal with. And party obviously not helping. And the issue here is when we put up ourselves to go into politics and on the NDC side, we have some very young people there. They need to look at these experiences as well and understand what is happening, because as a young person, like the Quincy's and the Kerry Ann and so on, you may rack up a debt as a young person that you're saddled with for years. And the party, and especially if your party don't win, what will happen? So you have to be careful when you're putting up yourself to understand.
And like I see somebody, so why he had to go and get into debt? Listen, yes, you're in the party structure, but it's pride. So I come here on Monday mornings. So I show up here like something the cat dragged in.
No, but it's not only that. Our politics is about the rum shop and the eater food, and that is the nature of the politics, regardless of what you do.
You have to. You are competing in a way that you have to.
If you pass by the shop and you can't make a rums or drinks for the guys,
buy a malt
or something, people look at you differently, especially if you want to stand up and engage them in a conversation in the shop or wherever. People expect a little drink, if nothing else. And not that they want you to give you money in a jersey or that sort of thing, but you need to be in a certain way.
We will be long dead. Our grandchildren, maybe our great-grands, they are the ones when that mindset would change. It ain't changing.
It's a cultural thing.
It's
a cultural thing.
Mainly cultural.
Brenda, I'm the one now asking permission to move the politics aside,
No, really? No, I ain't done with the politics yet. We still with the politics. So the bell rung. But there was a physical bell. You saw that? There was a physical bell. When the vans pull up, and I'm watching the security detail come out. and I had on my 4 eyes, not 2. There were 2 manila envelopes. One clearly had the speech, the address, and there was another one. I see the shape of a bear. Then I see the mom, Mrs. Mitchell, come out. I say, well, I know Mama Guy today. That thing announced. Once you see Mommy show up, it's serious business. No kidding around. So we got up and things happening and it was brilliant. I must congratulate the Prime Minister here. On Saturday, he knew he had the world looking because he want us in the cocoa. He going home, he going and clean the bell. Tomorrow he ringing it, right? So we knew he come in Saturday. Yeah. So the world was watching. If you look at the lives and so the numbers were astronomical. Yeah. And what he did in his speech was brilliant. It was almost like a national address. It was only towards the end that he politicked. He really addressed like his stewardship, where we were, where we came from, where he thinks we need to go. And then towards the end, he tapered off and he brought everybody up and it was time for the drama.
Time for the bell.
And then he got so excited with the whole thing. The person come in with the bell. I said, I know I saw the bell. But it was a nice bell. Yeah. They say it's a PBC bell, but I think the PBC bell is so nice.
The school bell.
I took call Mr. DeGale.
Oh my goodness.
No, that bell come out in somebody's dining room. Yeah. That bell too nice. That bell too nice. But anyway, you really have to. We Grenadians, we're not easy, you know. We're not easy. All of us have the same spiciness, from captain to cook.
I am always, amazed by that our Prime Minister, how he gets excited and how he has the energy around this time in campaigning at his particular age. I mean, we talk about ageism and what we feel about ageism, but this gentleman doesn't reflect anything about his age, the way in how he operates, energy-wise, to go to these various campaigns, and represent, as well as still do his day job and deal with the issues of national interest for us.
Put in the politics aside and looking at the Prime Minister. I mean, I'm from the constituency. I live at Montmorris, so I know him. I mean, I've seen him around over the years. He lived in the village. He's been a very physical person, very old, very physical. It's not something that's new.
He's a child of good health.
And I've always personally emulated him for his physical and just health practices, you know. And I mean, I'm talking about from a long time ago, like 40 years, throughout the time. So he's never stopped. This is who he is. And I think going more, it is somewhat to emulate in terms of looking at, because we have all, Grenada suffers with its
comorbidities
issues, non-communicable diseases and so on. I think this is someone certainly that as an example, I think, for all of us of what's possible. He might be on the extreme, but it's an example, I'm saying, to emulate from. So I
mean, I say take the politics out there, whether you like him or you don't like him as an individual.
You have to give him that.
You have to admire him, and I mean, he's well respected regionally and internationally for what he brings to the table, both politically and otherwise. So, you have to admire that, and I think if nothing else.
One of his best public addresses as well was about health. It was when we opened the Kirani James Athletic Stadium.
I remember that.
That was one of his best national addresses. It was about, speeches. It was about health and how he used himself. I think he spoke about a car and its engine and how he propelled us to, he's a poster child of good health. There's no disputing that. But the thing about, as you mentioned, energized, another thing is how energized the NNP people are. This is something else. I mean, on Thursday, was it on Thursday or Wednesday, Mrs. Thomas, Delma Thomas, she had just a little meeting in one of the villages there. These people moved, these people chanted for an hour and 16 minutes from one village to bring the lady under the street light where they having the meeting there. Same energy,
There's another thing I want to raise is the demographics of the supporters. Overwhelmingly in the NNP camp, it is women.
Lots of women.
Lots
That's
of
what you
women.
see. That's
That's
what
what
you
you
see.
see. I don't see the same on the NDC side. Probably I haven't
Yeah.
paid a lot of attention, but overwhelmingly,
The NDC have quite a bit of women.
you know, the women are so, I don't want to use the word emotional, but very more, you know, straight with their support.
Yeah,
They don't vary much. They don't move off the line.
Yeah.
And when they commit to you, they commit. And, you know, that is a big thing.
Yeah, and the back end to that is wherever the women are, the men are behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we
More
also,
often than not.
But we also spoke about where
If
the
you don't see
where the
And some of the
NNP
family.
where the NNP
Yeah.
was on the weekend. But where was the NDC on the weekend? I didn't.
But I know,
I
There
didn't
were
pick
a lot,
up.
no, they had
South
quite,
had some,
yeah, they had quite a few village
And he
meetings.
had some town hall
And
meetings.
then
So their thing was more
they
town
had
hall.
lots
Town
of
halls.
village meetings, and there was a town hall yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah, they
I
have
think
been doing
everybody's
some town
ramping
halls.
up.
Because I think
everybody's ramping up
for
there.
even our conversation, I mean, I look forward to picking up some of those so we can comment on some of those.
Well,
You see,
Byron,
the thing is,
I want to put out a challenge to you and Brenda.
What's that?
To
And
us.
to our producer, yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully we could get a debate.
Yeah.
I know about the debate thing now, but I tell them people are misbehaving bad. There's no
No,
to talk to one
but
another.
even though it's just a leader,
Drama.
Or even though it's just
We just
at
need
a
to probably
ministerial
interview
level.
people.
And I don't
yeah.
mind even putting forward the questions to you before. You
Yeah,
can see the
yeah.
questions before. They allow you to prepare. So there's no element of
Yeah,
surprise.
because the thing about
Whoever is
it
the
should-
shadow minister for health on the
Yeah.
NDC side,
should
and
never
our
be a
minister of
case-
health
Yeah,
as an
yeah.
example,
That's the point.
we bring two of them
Deal with
together
issues, yeah.
and we just discuss health
Yeah,
and where we
Because it should
probably
never be a
something.
case where the journalist or the host or whoever is trying to
Trap you.
trap a person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
have that too often
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
And I think that's why some of them stay away from certain people
Yeah.
and certain places. Because there is an entrapment thing. We always want to make somebody look shame
Yeah.
and we
Yeah,
want to
that's-
catch them. We are doing a disservice because our intent should be to edify
Yeah.
John public.
So probably we could try.
Yeah, we could try, Chris.
So
One
could try.
final point, Brenda, I'd like to make.
We could
before
try.
leave.
Those who are willing shall step forward.
Pleaded, yeah.
We'll ask Mr. Bola for some NNP people. And who's chairman friendly? Mr. Barry
Yeah, one of them. I
from
can't
some
remember.
NDC folks. Yeah.
Yeah. That we have a system presently. My information is one of the first systems for the season, but keep in mind that hurricane season starts in short
few
time,
weeks.
2 weeks. But
If it
one
is started
important point that is coming from the Hurricane Center or these experts that extremely active hurricane seasons are twice as likely now compared to the 80s due to global heating, global warming, climate change. So I think we all have to take it seriously. I know it's a political season, but let's
But
mindful of our
the
preparation.
good thing about that, our new NADMA office is now operational.
It is, yes.
It is.
hopefully
And that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. And
They're
I
always
know
ready for the most part.
I know there are a lot of preparatory work going on in the background. You know, we had these hospitals that were donated to us in case
Yes.
of a national emergency.
Yeah.
We could move them
Exactly.
mobile hospitals.
Beautiful.
And a lot of things are happening in the background with extra generators
Yeah,
and so on.
right,
So
right.
let us hope that we get nothing.
Yes.
But at least our NADMA people, and kudos to Senator Garaway, who is in charge of this area,
Yeah.
who have been doing a lot of background work
Yeah.
to augment in the event we have something.
And the
you know,
U.S.
that
government
could- and
gave
the
us
US
a lot of
government.
support
Lots
to,
of support.
So
to equip the
let us
center.
hope.
Let's
Let us
hope.
hope.
Yeah.
All right, before we leave, you'd be remiss of us not to mention that today is the final day for registration. I'm sure people are in the lines already at the various parliamentary offices and constituency offices and so on, to parliamentary offices rather, to get
you can
registered.
go on the website and
I
check
heard
your
something
status.
that it might be 2 days. It might be today and tomorrow. I'm not certain.
No, it's
At Bicolon, because of it's only effective when it's published, you know, and it's not published. It's not going to be published. They noticed today, so the publication might be on Wednesday. That's what I heard from some
Isn't the writ
experts.
coming out tomorrow?
That's not my information, but again, not with certainty. I'm just saying that check it out. You may have an extra day.
But the bigger point, though, is I don't see what the fuss and the fight is about.
done.
Because Grenada is one of the few territories that have continuous registration.
Yeah.
It's not like nobody declared a season open.
Yeah.
So political parties had to be doing their work.
Yeah.
And the registration process should have been continuing. Then about 6 months ago, we started to get a little inkling that we were coming up to an election. There was a lot of it happening, so we should have done it.
But we
There's
are
also this-
last minute people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are last minute people.
And the good thing is, Brenda, once you're registered, you
Yeah,
don't have to do anything.
Just go to PEO,
What's your name on the list?
PEO.org. You look for your name and so on.
Yeah,
and
check
you're
mine.
there.
It's
Yeah,
there.
Yeah, I
I check
went in
mine
and
up
checked
till
mine.
once when the bell. PEOgrenada.org. PEO Grenada.org.
Yeah.
And you just go there and look. Your name should say your
Since
full
the-
name,
Yeah.
where you are. Because remember too, we did is biometric registering. We did.
Yeah.
We are registered, really, even if we don't have the new card.
Oh, yeah,
so
exactly.
we
That's the
can't.
point.
Well, I made that
Just
absolutely
ensure.
clear. Now, what's your
Just-
name on the list?
Just ensure that your name is on the list.
Understand.
Use that device that you're busy doing all the mischief on.
Understand.
Go there and check and make sure your names are there. Please do that. Yeah, that's very, very, very important. Another thing was about the schools and CXC. Listen, it's geography exam. It's not English or math. A lot of the schools that they use as polling stations are primary schools. You know, people get in the line, they quietly go, they do. Grenadians are most reverent on election day. If you're a politician, you go in the line and you watch people face, you don't know who the hell they're voting for. We have a way we'll just stand up there and we go and we do eating, right?
We'll
People
find
are
a way to
quiet,
do it.
we are reverent,
Yeah.
and it happens, right? If there are students over 18 or 18 and over that need to vote, polling station go until 6 o'clock. You know, these are just
From 6 to 6.
Yeah, these are just logistical things.
Yeah.
Much ado about nothing.
no, it's not.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's get it over with.
That's right.
I certainly want to
Let's
do
get,
You know, those
let's
of us
get
in the
it over
private
with.
sector, there tends to be a lull of activity until
Yeah,
that day. And
yeah,
even if a government change, well, the lull does take even longer. But if not, then the incumbent gets
That's
back
correct.
Let's
quickly.
get it over with.
So we want to get it going.
Let's get it over with. I see they have a big touchdown in Montmorris Montmorris pasture on Wednesday.
touchdown? Who's
Yeah, they say the
touchdown?
PM comes home.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because what I know from history, guys, you know, when the Prime Minister first entered politics 50 years ago, and he ran, I think, on an GNP ticket. He lost his seat, of course, but he won the polling division in Montmorris. So Montmorris has always been
Dedicated supporter.
to him. So I think this is some recognition. This is some, yeah, to say, look.
So y'all don't give him one for the road, or y'all give it to young Lacrette?
Um,
One for the road?
I don't know. I'm looking for that independent poll to tell me.
You know when he said one for the road, all sorts of things went through my head.
Yeah.
I said, you know something, this will be something else. He will have a time. He will have a time.
You having a time already?
Yeah, no.
Just
You
looking at the body
you didn't
language.
see him in the Coco Friday night?
Yeah.
No. You see, first I like when his mother come to the thing. I said, no, he be good. Sometimes he just want to be naughty and then you see he look around like he taking a little check.
But it's his energy level.
Yeah.
I see this guy jumping with one of the Calypsonians there, you know.
Short leg.
Short leg?
Yes.
Yeah.
Short
Wow,
leg.
that was impressive.
Short leg
Wow.
is like he protege.
I'm always amazed at that as well.
But you know, it really, even if it's elections and, you know, parties and opposing parties, it's really colorful. You know, it really brings out who we are. And I keep saying, you know, we just inhaling too many spices. Grenadians do some really, really out of this world things, you know. But anyway, let's keep it positive for the most part.
Yeah.
Again, I plead, like, we can disagree. Not everybody likes apples, not everybody likes oranges. We can disagree, but let's not be disagreeable and let's not be nasty. Yeah? Yeah. So, gentlemen, have a great week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank you.
week.
You too,
Senator
Brenda.
Ali, thank you so much. Thank you so much for
You're
your
so
service
welcome.
in the
Yeah,
Senate.
absolutely.
We
That's
really
what we live with.
appreciate you. We really appreciate you. And of course, the reward for good work is more work.
Exactly.
You know, when you say that, get worried.
It doesn't end
Worried
first,
about,
trust me.
so
It
when
doesn't
we must
end.
have valuable humans just packing up? No.
I want
doesn't
to,
work.
I want to
That's
go,
what's
I want to
important,
go
everybody.
in, I want to go in the seaside where my certain friend of mine does swim a mile or more.
Well, you can
can
go
still
there. You
do
can go there sometimes. You can go there sometimes.
You can still do that.
Yes.
And then still go in Milan and pick our oranges.
Absolutely.
As
You
we
can
go
still
forward,
do
we need
that.
all our
Still
best
do
minds.
that.
We need all our best minds. We need all
No,
our
no, no.
people.
Well,
And ranging demographics.
I am always a nationalist from that point of view. My
Yeah.
country
I
comes
do
first
believe
after
so.
my God. I mean, before and
I do
after I
believe
mean,
so.
and I'm always here to help
I
where
do
I can,
believe so.
and I will never stop.
Yes.
So I'm happy
We
to do that.
appreciate that.
We look forward to your next sojourn in service.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
whatever that comes, wherever
Yes,
it
we
comes.
thank you for what you
Yeah.
did in the Senate. That's our program. Have a great week.
Thank you.
For everyone here, our producers, Kirk Oliver. Kirk, of course, did our camera this morning. We thank you so very much. And some audio. Blondell George, our director, Nazim Benjamin, for providing professional streaming services, and our executive producer, Richie Oliver. For Senator Christopher Dialli and Mr. Byron Campbell, I am Brenda Batiste for Perspectives. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good stuff.